Cobra Kai Season 6 Part 1 upped the fighting skills to get them prepared for the Sekai Taikai. With these new power scaling, some characters were able to overtake characters that were better than them in the previous seasons. So in today's video, I'm going to be ranking every single fighter in Cobra Kai Season 6 from worst to best. But before we start, I need to lay out the rules for how this is going to work. Firstly, I won't be scaling the adult fighters since they didn't do much in Part 1, so I can't really scale them. Second, even if a character wins against another character, that doesn't make them the better fighter, as we will see later on in the video. And finally, I won't be including different versions of the character in this tier list, such as rage amped and mentally nerfed. All the fighters will be in their best state. Now that we got the rules out of the way, I'm going to start off with the weakest fighters this season in D tier, where we have the usuals Nate and Bert, and then we have Mitch and Kyler. Nate and Bert are self-explanatory since they never have good feats, and Nate lost to Anthony, who just started learning karate, so I have him in D tier. Mitch didn't really do anything this season besides getting to the top 12 and getting a new nickname, which I think we can all agree on that no one is going to be calling him that. And for the strongest fighter in D tier, I have Kyler. Kyler is usually higher up on the list, but this season he's not at a dojo and doesn't really have any feats, so he's at the top of D tier. Moving on to C tier, we only have two fighters here, Chris and Anthony. Chris also didn't really do much, but we do know that he's better than Mitch since we have seen him beat him in every single encounter, so I think he deserves to be in C tier right below Anthony, who had a huge buff this season from not knowing how to fight to now being able to fight against Nate and beat him easily, and fight against Kenny and do quite well. Moving on to the more advanced fighters in B tier, we have Devin, Kenny, and Dimitri. Devin definitely had a big buff this season for being able to steal flag off of Dimitri and Hawk, but I'm not going to put her above them for that since I don't think Hawk was really focused during that scene, so he couldn't fight properly, and it didn't have too much to do with combat skills, and it was more being able to get around your opponent, which could help a lot in a fight, but she still doesn't have enough feats to scale above them. But moving on to Kenny in second place. In the first episode, Kenny did get humiliated by Sam and Tori. Even though he wasn't trying to fight them, he still doesn't stand a chance against them, so he's nowhere near the top fighters level. But Kenny was able to beat Anthony in their fight, and if it wasn't for Devin cheating, he would have qualified for the top 6. So I'm going to put him slightly above Devin, but it could go either way. And at the top of B tier, I have Dimitri. Dimitri also had a big buff this season, being able to get into the top 6 and being able to fight head to head with Hawk. Now, I know some of you may say that Dimitri beat Hawk, but there are a few reasons for that. First reason is that Hawk didn't want to fight Dimitri and he was very unfocused. The second reason is that Hawk did actually beat Dimitri, but since he showed mercy, Dimitri kicked him over and won the fight. So I have Dimitri at the top of B tier, slightly above Kenny and Devin, but below Sean and Hawk, who are in A tier. Sean only had one episode in Part 1, but he was able to stand against Robbie and even throw him after that. But he doesn't get any more hits on him, and he doesn't have any more fight scenes, so I'm going to have him at the bottom of A tier. As for Hawk, I know this placing could probably spark a war in the comments below. Before you do that, let me explain why I put him here. Hawk didn't really do anything impressive in Part 1, and he only made the top 6 just because Tori quit. I know that Devin cheated and Hawk would have beaten Dimitri if he didn't show mercy, but even then he was still in the bottom 4 out of the 8 candidates, and it was made very clear that Sam, Robbie, Miguel, and Tori were the 4 best fighters and above Hawk. But now that we have covered the advanced fighters, it's time to move on to the best fighters in S tier. And at the bottom of S tier, I have Sam and then Tori right above. Throughout the first 4 episodes, it seemed like Sam and Tori were on the same level, but in the captain's fight, it was made very clear that Tori was above Sam. The fight started off with Sam scoring the first point, but Tori quickly equalized with a kick that almost knocked Sam out. Sam then responded with a kick to get the lead, but then Tori dominated and would have gotten the second point and maybe even injured Sam if it wasn't for Daniel stepping in to stop the fight. I think from this fight it's pretty clear that Tori is above Sam and she could be even higher on the list, but we can't know that since we don't know the difference yet between Robbie, Miguel, and Tori. We can assume that their level is very close. For the next 2 fighters, I have Miguel and Robbie above him. Before all of the Miguel fans start commenting that I'm biased and Miguel was mentally nerfed or some sort of excuse like that, we wanted to debunk that. The reason why Miguel was winning at the start of the fight is because Robbie wasn't focused yet since he was worried about what was going on with Tori. But then once Tori arrived, Robbie won the fight and pulled off some of the best fighting combos that I've seen on the show. And as for the excuse of Miguel being mentally nerfed, I seriously can't even understand how some people came up with that. There are no hints of Miguel being mentally nerfed at all. Miguel was locked in since the start of the fight and was ready to win, but Robbie proved himself to be the better fighter. But moving on to the best fighter in Part 1, I have Quan as the best fighter. From the moment Quan appeared, I knew there was no way Robbie and Miguel were going to stand a chance against this guy. I still think that now after I finished watching, and Quan made quick work of Kim's top 3 fighters, who we know are on a whole different level than Terry Silver students. But that's all for today's video. Let me know in the comments how your tier list would go. Like and subscribe for more Season 6 content, because I will be uploading a lot more long form content like this. I have lots of shorts about Season 6 coming up. If you haven't seen my video where I review Season 6 Part 1, go watch it right here.